You can learn everything about a marriage from a single sentence, especially the one your spouse thinks is too small to matter. The first time Olivia introduced me as just the guy I married, I smiled. The second time, I pretended not to notice. By the third, I realized she had stopped seeing me long before I admitted it to myself. My name is Ethan Walker. I'm 46 years old, born and raised in Connecticut, and for most of my life I've believed that respect isn't something you demand. It's something you quietly earn, one decision at a time. That belief had guided me through every chapter of my life. It also led me into the most humiliating room I'd ever walked into. The headquarters of Sterling Dynamics rose above downtown Manhattan like a monument to ambition. Glass walls reflected the morning sun. Executives hurried through revolving doors carrying leather portfolios and paper cups filled with coffee that cost more than the lunches I used to bring from home. I parked my aging silver pickup 3 blocks away. Old habits. No reason to fight for valet parking when my legs still worked perfectly fine. I straightened my navy suit in the reflection of the building's polished entrance. It wasn't expensive. It fit well enough. The cuffs showed a little wear if someone looked closely. Most people never did. Inside, the marble lobby echoed with quiet conversations, polished shoes, and the constant hum of elevators carrying people who believed they were shaping the future. Olivia belonged here. At least that's what everyone believed. She stood near the reception desk wearing a tailored ivory suit that matched the confidence in her smile. Her blonde hair rested neatly over one shoulder, every detail carefully controlled. She laughed with 2 senior vice presidents as if she'd known them forever. She noticed me only after one of them glanced in my direction. "Oh," she said with a pleasant smile that never reached her eyes. "There you are." I walked over. One of the executives extended his hand. "And this is?" Olivia answered before I could. "This is Ethan." A brief pause. Then she smiled again. "Just the guy I married." The 3 of them laughed politely. Not cruelly, not loudly, just enough for everyone nearby to understand exactly where I belong. I smiled back. "Nice to meet you," I said. One of the executives nodded with the kind of sympathy reserved for husbands people assume live comfortably in their wives' shadows. The conversation moved on without me. Quarterly projections, market expansion, leadership initiatives. Words floated through the air while I stood half a step behind Olivia, listening without interrupting. Funny thing about silence. People mistake it for weakness. The elevator doors opened. We stepped inside with another dozen executives heading toward the 20th floor. Someone asked Olivia if I worked in finance. She laughed softly. "No, Ethan prefers staying away from corporate life." Prefers. That word lingered in my head. It was easier than explaining anything else. When the elevator stopped, everyone filed into the executive corridor lined with photographs of former chairmen, groundbreaking ceremonies, and award-winning product launches stretching back nearly 40 years. Olivia walked confidently toward the boardroom. I followed several steps behind. The conference room was larger than most people's homes. A polished walnut table stretched nearly the entire length of the room. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the skyline. Every chair held neatly organized folders, bottled water, and engraved nameplates. Except one. At the very end of the table sat a chair without a name. Mine, or so everyone assumed. As executives settled into conversations, I noticed something unexpected. An elderly man with silver hair had just entered through a side door. His posture remained perfectly straight despite his age. He stopped walking the moment our eyes met. For the briefest second, the room around us disappeared. He gave me a small nod. Not casual, not friendly, respectful. The kind of nod one professional gives another after sharing years of history. Then, before anyone else could notice, he quietly lowered his eyes and continued toward the front of the room. No one reacted. No one except me. Olivia was already reviewing her presentation slides. She never saw it. Neither did the others. But something had just shifted. And for the first time that morning, I realized I wasn't the only person in this room who remembered exactly how Sterling Dynamics had truly begun. People think humiliation is loud. It isn't. Most of the time, it arrives wearing a smile and carrying someone else's introduction. I took the empty chair without saying a word. The leather was cool beneath my hands. Around me, conversations flowed as naturally as water over polished stone. Quarterly earnings, international acquisitions, market confidence. Every sentence sounded rehearsed. as if everyone in the room had practiced believing they were indispensable. I simply listened. For years, listening had become my greatest advantage. Olivia sat halfway down the table beside Daniel Brooks, Sterling Dynamics' celebrated CEO. They leaned toward one another as they reviewed slides glowing across a pair of tablets. They looked like the perfect executive team, confident, polished, admired by everyone who entered the room. I remembered when success looked different. Back then, it smelled like coffee brewing before sunrise and blueprints spread across a kitchen table. Now it smelled like expensive cologne and polished walnut. Funny how prosperity changes the fragrance of a dream. Across the room, assistants arranged bottled water while the company's legal counsel quietly organized stacks of folders beside every seat. No one spoke to me. No one asked my opinion. That suited me just fine. Invisible people hear everything. A young board member leaned toward another director and whispered just loudly enough. "So that's Olivia's husband? The one she mentioned?" "Yeah. He doesn't exactly look like executive material." A quiet chuckle followed. I kept studying the skyline outside. The glass reflected Manhattan in perfect symmetry, steel reaching toward clouds that never cared who owned the buildings beneath them. Appearances are persuasive. Truth usually arrives much later. Someone entered behind me. The room changed almost instantly. Not dramatically, just enough. Conversations softened. Several directors straightened in their chairs. The silver-haired gentleman I'd noticed earlier crossed slowly toward the head of the table. His nameplate read William Harrison, founding board member, 40 years with Sterling Dynamics. Most employees considered him a living legend. He greeted people politely before his eyes found mine again. Another small nod, barely noticeable, but this time there was something else. Gratitude. Then he continued walking as though nothing unusual had happened. Daniel noticed, only for a second. His expression tightened before returning to its practiced confidence. Interesting. Very interesting. Olivia never looked up. She was too focused on rehearsing her presentation. That wasn't unusual anymore. There had been a time when she looked for me first in every crowded room. A time when introductions sounded different. "This is my husband, Ethan." Later it became, "My husband, Ethan." Eventually, "This is Ethan." And this morning, just the guy I married. People rarely wake up one day deciding to stop respecting someone. It happens gradually. One missing word at a time. One forgotten glance. One polite dismissal disguised as harmless humor. Marriage doesn't collapse because of earthquakes. Most of the time, it erodes like a shoreline. Quietly, patiently, until one morning the land beneath your feet simply isn't there anymore. The boardroom doors opened once again. Emma Carter, corporate secretary, entered carrying a slim black portfolio against her chest. She moved with the calm precision of someone who understood every minute mattered. She began placing sealed envelopes beside several directors. When she reached my chair, she paused. For half a heartbeat. Then, with both hands instead of one, she carefully placed a thicker envelope in front of me. "Good morning, Mr. Walker," she said softly. Not Ethan, not Olivia's husband. Mr. Walker. Formal, respectful, intentional. Before I could respond, she offered the slightest smile and continued around the room. No one seemed to notice except William Harrison. He watched the exchange over the rim of his reading glasses. Daniel noticed too. This time his jaw tightened. Olivia remained absorbed in her presentation, unaware that tiny fractures had already begun spreading beneath the polished surface of her perfect morning. Most people think power announces itself. Real power rarely does. It waits. It observes. It lets everyone reveal exactly who they are before saying a single word. I rested my hand lightly on the unopened envelope. The paper felt heavier than it should have, not because of what was inside, because of what would happen after someone finally asked me to open it. The most dangerous secrets aren't hidden because they're impossible to discover. They're hidden because no one ever thinks to ask the quiet man sitting in the corner. Emma Carter returned to the front of the room and checked the digital clock mounted above the presentation screen. 9 o'clock sharp. The board meeting was about to begin. One by one, conversations faded into silence. Chairs slid across the polished hardwood floor. Tablets lit up. Pens clicked. Daniel Brooks stood first. He had the effortless confidence of a man accustomed to applause before he ever spoke. Tall, silver tie, tailored charcoal suit, perfect posture. Business magazines loved him. Investors praised him. Employees quoted him. He smiled at the room. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being here. A chorus of polite nods followed. As always, we've had another outstanding quarter. The screen behind him filled with colorful charts climbing upward. Revenue, market share, international expansion, the language of success. Daniel spoke with practiced rhythm, pausing exactly where audiences expected confidence. I had watched hundreds of presentations over the years. The best presenters weren't always the smartest. They simply understood what people wanted to believe. As applause echoed around the room, I noticed William Harrison wasn't clapping. He simply watched. His fingers rested quietly on a closed leather notebook that looked older than some of the directors sitting around the table. There was history inside that notebook, far more than quarterly numbers. Daniel invited Olivia to continue. She stood gracefully, thanked him, and stepped toward the center of the room. The confidence in her voice was unmistakable. Our leadership strategy has transformed Sterling Dynamics into one of the fastest-growing companies in the industry. Another slide appeared. Photos of leadership retreats, charity events, awards, magazine covers. Her photograph occupied the largest space. She had worked hard for that recognition. No one could deny it. She was intelligent, disciplined, ambitious. Those qualities had once inspired me. Somewhere along the way, they had also changed her. She described innovation, efficiency, corporate culture. Every sentence earned approving expressions from the board. Then came the moment that caught my attention. One director raised his hand. "Olivia, congratulations on the promotion again. Your husband must be proud." She smiled. "Oh, Ethan." Several people glanced toward me. He's never been interested in any of this. Corporate strategy isn't really his world. A few people chuckled politely. She wasn't trying to be cruel. That almost made it worse. She genuinely believed what she was saying. Sometimes disrespect doesn't sound like an insult. Sometimes it sounds like certainty. I offered the same calm smile I'd worn all morning. No correction, no explanation. Truth doesn't become stronger because it's defended. Across the table, William Harrison slowly closed his notebook. His expression revealed nothing, but his jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. Emma noticed. So did the company's outside legal counsel, Richard Lawson. Richard had barely acknowledged anyone all morning. Now his attention lingered on me for an extra second before returning to his documents. Another small crack. Another quiet signal. Daniel resumed speaking. The final agenda item today concerns governance recommendations and long-term ownership structure. Interesting choice of words. Ownership. Several directors reached for the printed agenda. Mine remained closed. I already knew what was written there. Months ago, I had helped write the language myself. Not directly, not publicly, but every sentence had passed through hands I trusted. Emma distributed one final packet to each board member. The envelopes remained sealed. "These documents," she announced, "will be opened only after Item 7 has concluded." Around the table, curiosity replaced routine. Directors exchanged puzzled looks. Unexpected paperwork during a scheduled board meeting was rare. Daniel forced a relaxed smile. "I'm sure legal has everything under control." His voice sounded steady. His fingers tapping the table did not. Outside, clouds drifted across the Manhattan skyline, casting moving shadows over the glass walls of the boardroom. For the first time that morning, the room felt smaller, heavier, as if everyone sensed a storm approaching without seeing the clouds. Olivia returned to her seat beside Daniel. She leaned over and whispered something that made him smile. Neither of them noticed William looking toward me once again. This time, he didn't nod. He simply placed his hand over his notebook and exhaled slowly. The gesture lasted less than 2 seconds. But I understood it perfectly. He wasn't nervous. He was relieved. Because after 15 years of silence, the company we had once dreamed of building together was finally about to learn the difference between the face that represented Sterling Dynamics and the man who had never truly stopped protecting it. Success has a peculiar way of rewriting memories. The higher people climb, the easier it becomes to forget who held the ladder steady at the bottom. As Daniel concluded the governance overview, the room settled into another brief silence. Not an uncomfortable one, the kind that exists before something important happens. Emma Carter glanced at the agenda. Item 6 has concluded, she announced professionally. We'll proceed with discussion before moving to governance recommendations. Several directors began exchanging opinions about expansion into European markets. The conversation drifted naturally from numbers to strategy. No one invited me to speak. That was expected. After all, according to everyone in the room, I was simply Olivia's husband, the man who preferred staying away from corporate life. I folded my hands together and listened. Listening had taught me far more about people than talking ever could. Across the table, Olivia spoke with remarkable confidence. "Our future depends on bold leadership," she said. "Companies that hesitate eventually disappear." Several directors nodded in agreement. Daniel smiled proudly beside her. They made an impressive team. Watching them together reminded me of another conference room many years earlier. Only it hadn't looked anything like this. There had been no skyline, no polished walnut, no custom lighting, just a rented office above an old hardware store in Hartford. The windows leaked during winter. The heating system rattled every morning. The conference table was an old wooden door resting on two filing cabinets. William Harrison had laughed the first time he saw it. "If the company survives," he joked, "I'm framing this table." We all laughed. Back then there were only four of us. William, myself, a brilliant engineer named Frank, and a young accountant who believed impossible ideas deserved honest books. Sterling Dynamics hadn't begun with investors. It had begun with trust. People often assume companies are built from money. They're not. They're built from sacrifices no balance sheet ever records. Missed anniversaries, sleepless nights, second mortgages, promises whispered across kitchen tables. Olivia knew that story better than anyone. She had been there, not in the office every day, but at home. She had watched me leave before sunrise carrying prototype drawings rolled beneath one arm. She had waited through weekends spent solving manufacturing problems. She had celebrated every tiny contract as though we'd won the lottery. Back then, every victory belonged to both of us. Somewhere over the years, those memories faded. Not because they disappeared, because newer achievements slowly buried them. Magazine interviews, executive dinners, awards, private flights. Recognition has an unfortunate side effect. If you're not careful, you begin believing applause has always been following you. Daniel interrupted my thoughts. "I think our current leadership team deserves recognition for creating the company's strongest decade." Another round of polite applause echoed through the room. William remained still. Again, he didn't object. He simply refused to applaud a version of history he knew wasn't complete. His silence carried more weight than anyone else's clapping. I caught his eye for just a moment. He offered the faintest smile, not nostalgic, encouraging, as if reminding me that truth has remarkable patience. Olivia continued reviewing next year's strategic vision. She spoke about legacy. The word lingered in the air. Legacy. Interesting choice. Real legacy isn't measured by who receives credit. It's measured by what survives after pride fades away. Emma quietly approached Richard Lawson near the side wall. They exchanged a few whispered words while reviewing a document stamped confidential. Richard checked his watch, then looked directly toward me. Almost imperceptibly, he inclined his head. Everything was proceeding exactly on schedule. Months of preparation now depended on timing. Nothing else. A board director across the table suddenly frowned. "I don't remember seeing Item 7 explained in the pre-meeting package." Emma answered calmly. "That's intentional. The supporting documents remain under legal privilege until discussion begins." The room grew noticeably quieter. Directors exchanged puzzled looks. Unexpected legal procedures rarely accompanied routine meetings. Daniel adjusted his tie. "It'll probably just be a compliance update." Probably. The smallest word in the English language can sometimes hide the biggest uncertainty. Outside, dark clouds finally drifted across the morning sun. The brilliant skyline dimmed. Reflections disappeared from the glass walls. The boardroom suddenly felt less like a monument to success, and more like a courtroom waiting for someone to tell the whole truth. The truth never arrives by accident. Long before the moment everyone calls a surprise, someone has already spent months preparing for it in silence. The room remained quiet as Emma Carter organized the documents for Item 7. No one realized that what they were waiting for had not begun that morning. It had begun almost 8 months earlier. I still remembered the phone call. Not because it was dramatic, because it was unusually calm. William Harrison had called me on a Sunday afternoon. "Ethan," he'd said, "I think it's time you came back." I had been trimming hedges behind our house. The lawn mower sat nearby. Birds sang in the maple trees. Nothing about that afternoon suggested the future of Sterling Dynamics was about to change. "I retired for a reason, William," I know. Silence. Then he spoke 6 words that stayed with me. It isn't your company anymore. At first, I thought he meant legally. He didn't. He meant spiritually. During the following weeks, I never walked into headquarters. Instead, I watched from a distance. Annual reports, board minutes, public filings, executive interviews, everything available to shareholders. The numbers looked outstanding, almost too outstanding. Revenue climbed. Stock prices rose. Executive bonuses reached record highs. Investors celebrated. Financial success tells only part of a company's story. Culture tells the rest. So I started asking different questions. How many senior engineers had resigned? Why were longtime suppliers quietly leaving? Why had customer complaints doubled despite record profits? Why had employee retention fallen every year for 5 consecutive years? Patterns reveal themselves long before scandals do. The more I looked, the clearer everything became. Sterling Dynamics hadn't become dishonest. It had become arrogant. There is a difference. Dishonest companies usually collapse quickly. Arrogant companies believe they are too successful to fail. That illusion is even more dangerous. William arranged private meetings away from headquarters. Never in corporate offices. Never where anyone might recognize us together. Sometimes in quiet diners. Sometimes at an old golf clubhouse neither of us actually played golf at. Once in a public library where no one paid attention to 2 older men discussing business over coffee. Each conversation painted another piece of the picture. People weren't afraid of hard work. They were afraid of leadership that had stopped listening. Managers chased quarterly applause. Veteran employees disappeared. Founding values became marketing slogans. The company still carried the same name. It no longer carried the same heart. One evening, William placed a thin folder across the table. I've kept these for 15 years. Inside were handwritten notes from our earliest board meetings. Simple principles. Treat employees like partners. Protect quality before profit. Never confuse growth with purpose. I recognized my own handwriting beneath several paragraphs. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. Finally, William smiled. You remember writing these? I remember believing every word. So do I. That was the moment I stopped asking whether I should become involved again. The real question became how. Not through revenge. Not through emotion. Through responsibility. Richard Lawson joined us 2 weeks later. As outside legal counsel, he represented the trust that had quietly protected the company's original ownership structure all these years. He reviewed every document, every signature, every legal requirement. Nothing could rely on surprise alone. Everything had to withstand scrutiny. If this proceeds, Richard warned, there can be no appearance of personal retaliation. I wouldn't want that. What do you want? I answered without hesitation. I want Sterling Dynamics back. Not for myself. For the people who still believed in what it was supposed to be. Back in the present, Daniel laughed confidently at a director's joke. Olivia checked one final note on her tablet before setting it aside. Neither of them noticed Richard placing his hand on the sealed governance file. Neither of them noticed William quietly closing his eyes for a brief second. Neither of them noticed me sliding my unopened envelope exactly 1 inch closer. Every move looked ordinary. Every second mattered. Emma stepped to the center of the room once again. Ladies and gentlemen, she announced, her voice steady and precise. We will now proceed to item 7. The air inside the boardroom changed. No one could explain why, but everyone felt it. Some meetings end with a vote. This one was about to begin with the first crack in a story that had remained hidden for 15 years. There comes a moment in every carefully planned deception when silence becomes impossible. The only question is who will speak first. Emma Carter stood at the center of the boardroom with the composure of someone who had rehearsed every second of what came next. Ladies and gentlemen, she said, we will now move to item 7, governance review and ownership confirmation. A few directors exchanged puzzled looks. One of them flipped through the agenda again. I don't remember this section requiring legal counsel. Richard Lawson rose from his chair without answering. He buttoned his jacket, gathered a slim leather binder, and walked to the front of the room beside Emma. That alone was unusual. Outside counsel rarely addressed the board unless something carried legal significance beyond ordinary business. Daniel Brooks leaned back with a relaxed smile. I'm sure this won't take long. Richard acknowledged him politely. I sincerely hope you're correct. The room grew noticeably quieter. Richard opened the binder. as required under the company's governing documents and the original continuity trust agreement. Today marks the scheduled conclusion of a 15-year review period. Several directors frowned. One whispered to another, "Original continuity trust? I've never heard of it." Neither had most of them. That had been the point. Richard continued. Certain ownership interests have remained under confidential legal administration during that period. Under the terms of the trust, today's board meeting is the first opportunity to formally disclose the current governance status. Daniel's confident smile faded just enough for me to notice. Only someone watching him closely would have seen it. Olivia glanced toward him. "What trust?" she asked quietly. He shrugged. "I'm sure legal will explain." His voice sounded calm. His fingers, however, had stopped tapping altogether. Richard looked toward Emma. "Please instruct the directors to open the sealed governance packets." The sound filled the room all at once. Paper, envelopes tearing, pages unfolding. Directors scanned documents with growing confusion. Several brows furrowed almost immediately. One board member adjusted his glasses before reading the first paragraph again. Another turned directly to the appendix as though convinced he had misunderstood. Emma remained perfectly still. No one spoke. Richard finally broke the silence. "For legal accuracy, I will summarize the documents before discussion begins." He paused long enough for every eye in the room to settle on him. 15 years ago, the company's principal ownership interest was transferred into an irrevocable blind trust under provisions approved by the founding board. William Harrison quietly folded his hands. His expression never changed. Richard continued. "The trust has now reached its contractual maturity. As required, ownership authority, voting rights, and governance privileges must be formally acknowledged before any additional resolutions can proceed." A director near the end of the table looked directly at Daniel. "You knew about this?" Daniel hesitated. "I was informed there were historical governance documents." Historical. Interesting choice of word. History only feels unimportant until it walks back into the room. Olivia leaned closer to Daniel. "Does this affect today's vote?" Before he could answer, Richard responded himself. "It affects every vote taken after this agenda item." The room became perfectly still. Someone slowly set down a pen. Another director closed his laptop. The presentation slides glowing on the large screen suddenly seemed meaningless. Revenue charts, growth projections, strategic initiatives, all of them depended on one simple question. Who actually held the authority to decide? Richard reached for the final page inside his binder. The trust agreement requires one final procedural step. He turned toward Emma. "Please identify the designated beneficiary." Emma nodded once. Instead of reading immediately, she looked around the room as though making certain everyone was paying attention. Then her eyes settled on me. For the first time all morning, every person at the table followed her gaze. I remained seated. My unopened envelope rested quietly beneath my hands. Olivia looked at me with mild confusion. Daniel's posture stiffened. William Harrison closed his eyes for a brief second before opening them again. Emma drew a slow breath. "The designated beneficiary." She stopped, not for dramatic effect, because protocol required one final signature before the announcement could become official. She walked calmly across the room, past Daniel, past Olivia, past every director, until she stood beside my chair. Then, with both hands, she placed a fountain pen on top of my unopened envelope. "Mr. Walker," she said respectfully, "the board is ready for you." The room didn't change because I stood up. It changed because everyone suddenly realized they had been looking in the wrong direction all morning. For a brief moment, no one moved. Emma Carter remained beside my chair, the fountain pen resting on top of the sealed envelope. Every pair of eyes followed her. Then they shifted to me. Olivia frowned. "Ethan." It was the first time she had spoken my name all morning without sounding distracted. There was confusion in her voice. Nothing more. Not yet. I looked at Emma. "Thank you." She stepped back immediately. Not because she was afraid, because protocol required it. I picked up the pen. The room was so quiet I could hear the faint hum of the air conditioning above the ceiling panels. Paper rustled somewhere near the far end of the table. Someone cleared his throat. No one spoke. I signed my name across the final page inside the envelope. Ethan James Walker. The ink had barely dried before Richard Lawson accepted the document and examined the signature carefully. He nodded once. "Thank you, Mr. Walker." He turned toward the board. The trust has now been formally concluded. A director raised his hand. I'm sorry, but concluded in favor of whom? Richard closed the folder with deliberate care. The sole beneficiary. Another pause. Then he spoke with the precision of a man reading legal history rather than making an announcement. Ethan James Walker. Silence. Absolute silence. For several seconds, no one reacted. The words seemed too ordinary to carry the weight they actually held. Then one director blinked. Another looked from Richard to me. Then back again. Olivia gave a small laugh. I'm sorry. She looked around the room. There has to be some misunderstanding. Daniel remained perfectly still. Too still. He wasn't surprised by my name. He was surprised that the process had reached this point. Richard continued before anyone could interrupt. There is no misunderstanding. He opened another document. Under the original continuity trust agreement executed 15 years earlier, Mr. Ethan James Walker retained beneficial ownership of the controlling voting interest while voluntarily transferring administrative authority to an independent blind trust. The words settled over the room one sentence at a time. Controlling, voting, ownership. No one looked at the financial projections anymore. No one cared about quarterly earnings. Every conversation from the previous 3 hours had suddenly become irrelevant. One director whispered almost involuntarily, controlling interest. Another quickly calculated something on a legal pad before slowly lowering his pen. William Harrison finally spoke for the first time that morning. His voice was calm, steady, and today, that authority returns exactly as the founding agreement intended. Olivia turned toward me. Her expression had changed completely. Ethan. Her voice was barely audible. You knew about this? I met her eyes. Yes. For how long? Since the day we signed a trust. Color slowly disappeared from her face. She searched my expression as though trying to find a joke. There wasn't one. Daniel leaned forward. Richard. His voice remained controlled. What percentage are we discussing? Richard answered without hesitation. Through the trust structure, Mr. Walker now exercises voting authority, representing 51% of the company's controlling shares. Someone inhaled sharply. Another director quietly removed his glasses. 51%. Not a large difference. Just enough. Enough to appoint. Enough to remove. Enough to decide. Enough to protect. Power is rarely about overwhelming numbers. Sometimes it is simply one vote more than everyone else combined. Olivia stared at me as though seeing a stranger. I don't understand. No, I answered quietly. I don't think you do. Not because she lacked intelligence. Because she had stopped asking questions years ago. She had accepted the simplest explanation. That I preferred quiet. That I wasn't interested in business. That I had become just the guy she married. Richard placed one final folder in front of me. Its cover carried only 4 words. Chairman's Governance Authority. Daniel looked at it without speaking. His confidence had not disappeared, but certainly had. There is an enormous difference. William slowly rose from his chair. He wasn't acknowledging power. He was acknowledging history. Around the table, every director instinctively turned toward me, waiting for the first words of the man they had ignored all morning. And for the first time since entering the building, no one saw Olivia's husband. They saw the founder who had quietly walked back into the company he had never truly left. Real authority doesn't raise its voice. It simply changes the direction of the room. No one spoke after William Harrison stood. The silence carried more meaning than applause ever could. I remained seated for another moment, letting the weight of the revelation settle naturally. Shock needs time. People rarely understand life-changing truth the instant they hear it. Daniel Brooks finally cleared his throat. Mr. Walker. It was the first time he had addressed me with formal respect. I believe we should take a brief recess. I looked toward him. There won't be one. My voice wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. The room became still again. Richard Lawson glanced at Emma Carter. She gave a small nod. Protocol continued. Daniel forced a diplomatic smile. Perhaps everyone simply needs a few minutes to process the documentation. I've had 15 years to process it, I replied calmly. I think everyone else can manage the next 15 minutes. No one laughed. No one dared. Power had already shifted. People simply hadn't finished accepting it. I slowly opened the folder labeled Chairman's Governance Authority. Inside were resolutions prepared months earlier. Each one had been reviewed repeatedly to ensure every action followed company bylaws. No surprises. No shortcuts. Only procedure. I looked around the table. Every face reflected a different emotion. Confusion, embarrassment, curiosity, fear. Olivia's expression hurt the most. She wasn't angry. Not yet. She simply looked lost, as though the life she'd carefully constructed had developed a crack she couldn't explain. I understood that feeling. I'd experienced it years earlier when I realized success had become more important to her than the people who helped build it. I placed the folder on the table. Before we discuss leadership, I began. I'd like to discuss responsibility. No one interrupted. The numbers you've celebrated this morning are impressive. I glanced toward the presentation screen. They should be. The people working inside this company are exceptionally talented. Several directors nodded almost instinctively. But financial success doesn't excuse cultural failure. Daniel leaned forward. What exactly are you suggesting? I'm not suggesting anything. I slid a second report across the table. I'm documenting it. Emma distributed copies to every director. The title spoke for itself. Independent Organizational Review. Confidential. Prepared over 8 months. Pages turned rapidly. Employee retention statistics. Exit interviews. Supplier complaints. Internal ethics reports. Anonymous management surveys. No accusations. Only evidence. One director frowned. I never received these reports. No, I answered. You received summaries. Another looked up. These recommendations were never presented to the board. They weren't presented to this board. William Harrison quietly added. They were filtered before reaching us. The room grew colder. Daniel looked directly at Richard. Is this verified? Richard answered immediately. Every document has been independently authenticated. No emotion, only fact. Truth has remarkable confidence when it doesn't require exaggeration. Olivia continued reading silently. Halfway through the report, her breathing changed. She reached one particular page and stopped. Employee comments. Anonymous. Brutally honest. Leadership no longer listens. Founding values exist only in marketing brochures. Executives reward appearances over integrity. People are afraid to disagree. She read every line twice. Slowly, she looked at me. You commissioned this? Yes. Why didn't you tell me? I held her gaze. Would you have listened? She opened her mouth. No words came. Sometimes silence answers more honestly than language ever can. I closed the report. I'm not here to embarrass anyone. I let the sentence settle. I'm here because Sterling Dynamics deserves better than becoming another successful company that forgets why it was created. Across the room, William smiled for the first time that morning. Not because anyone had been defeated, because someone had finally spoken for the people who couldn't. I turned another page inside the governance folder. The first resolution before the board is straightforward. Every director instinctively sat a little straighter. An independent operational audit will begin immediately. No objections. The second resolution establishes a temporary governance because every decision deserves the respect of being spoken carefully. Places all executive contract renewals, including those of the Chief Executive Officer and Chief Strategy Officer, under immediate board review pending completion of the audit. Daniel's confident expression disappeared. Olivia slowly lowered her eyes. No one accused them of misconduct. No one raised a voice. No one celebrated. Justice, when handled properly, doesn't begin with punishment. It begins with accountability. And for the first time in many years, accountability had quietly walked back into the boardroom, carrying my name. Respect cannot be demanded. It can only be recognized. And when it is genuine, people stand before they even realize they have left their chairs. No one objected to the resolutions. Not because everyone agreed with every decision. Because every document had already answered the only question that mattered. Was it lawful? The answer was yes. Was it necessary? The silence around the room answered that one. Richard Lawson gathered the signed resolutions and handed them to Emma Carter. The motions are now entered into the official record. Emma nodded. So recorded. The words sounded simple. But with them, 15 years of waiting officially came to an end. I slowly closed the governance folder. For the first time that morning, I allowed myself to look around the room without searching for clues. There were no more clues to find. Only consequences. Several directors who had barely acknowledged me hours earlier now met my eyes with quiet respect. Not because I owned 51% of the company. Ownership alone has never earned admiration. Character does. William Harrison stood once more. This time he wasn't speaking as a founding board member. He was speaking as an old friend. "I've served Sterling Dynamics for nearly 4 decades," he said. His voice trembled ever so slightly. "I've watched brilliant people come and go. I've watched this company survive recessions, fierce competition, and impossible odds." He paused. "But I've never believed our greatest strength was our products." He turned toward me. "Our greatest strength was always the values on which this company was built." His eyes grew brighter. And today, those values came home. No one interrupted him. No one wanted to. Daniel slowly removed the badge clipped to his suit jacket. He looked tired, older than he had seemed that morning. "I owe the board my full cooperation," he said quietly. "I'll assist the audit in every way required." There was no anger in his voice, only acceptance. Sometimes dignity appears only after power disappears. I nodded once. "Thank you." That was all. No lecture, no humiliation. Justice should never become revenge simply because revenge is available. Across the table, Olivia had not spoken for several minutes. She stared at the polished surface of the boardroom table where our reflections appeared side by side. Finally, she whispered, "I never asked." I looked at her. "No, I stopped wondering who you really were." She swallowed carefully. "I thought I already knew." For a moment, neither of us spoke. There are conversations too personal for an audience. Some apologies belong to the future, not the boardroom. I answered quietly enough that only she could hear. "I never wanted you to admire my position." Her eyes filled with tears she refused to let fall. "I only wanted you to remember my name." She closed her eyes, because she understood. This had never been about wealth, or control, or titles. It had begun with a single sentence. "Just the guy I married." Amazing how 7 ordinary words can reveal years of quiet distance. Emma finished collecting the final signatures. The meeting is adjourned. Chairs shifted. Folders closed. For a brief second, no one moved toward the exit. Then something happened that had never been planned. William Harrison stepped away from the head of the table. He faced me, without saying a single word. He stood, not because company policy required it, not because tradition demanded it, simply because he believed respect should be visible. One by one, another director followed. Then another. Then another. Leather chairs slid backward across the hardwood floor. The sound echoed through the room like gentle applause. Richard Lawson stood. Emma Carter stood. Every member of the board rose to their feet. No one announced it. No one coordinated it. Respect had moved through the room faster than instructions ever could. I remained where I was for another second, humbled by a gesture I had never expected and certainly never requested. Finally, I stood as well, not above them, among them, because leadership was never about making people stand for you. It was about giving them a reason to. As I walked toward the boardroom doors, I paused beside the company mission engraved into the glass wall. The same words I had written decades earlier. Integrity before achievement. People before profit. I smiled quietly. The company had finally remembered them. And perhaps, one day, so would my wife. Because the greatest victory of that morning wasn't reclaiming a boardroom. It was proving that the quietest person in the room had never stopped protecting everyone inside it, even after they had forgotten who he was.